I read my script and I think, it needs a note of blank, I write it on the wall, and then it's just like top of my mind for things to bleed in and paint into the redrafting. I'm Shaan Sahota. I'm the writer of The Estate, which is going to play at the Dorfman this summer. I watched an ungodly amount of television as a child. I think we have to credit it to that. So I think with my cousins and my brother and sister, there were, imagining TV shows. And because we were watching such trashy TV over the summer, like Sunset Beach style, like it was like incredible melodrama, like people coming back from the dead, lots of kind of how dare you slap. So there was childhood, there was lots of childhood storytelling. Writing has, for a long time, been something I did for a very small fraction of my time. I'm a full-time doctor and I was working in hospital until 2 weeks ago. If you do a series of night shifts, you get about 4 days off, or if you do the long on-call shifts, you get a few days off. And I generally have been writing in those days. I did a reading of the play post-pandemic at the Park Theatre, and someone from the studio, Nina Steiger, came to that reading. And so we had a meeting afterwards and she gave me an attachment here. And I think that's when I learned to write. I read plays every single day. I came to this library, I read a play every day. I watched plays in the archive that I had missed and not seen. And I just had a period of sustained thinking. I just completely rewrote the play, and it was a different play that came out, and the team here kind of saw that the play had gone from having the bare bones of a great idea to being something that was potentially, that could potentially be put on. The very first version of this play kind of felt like a debate on fairness and inheritance, and it was me kind of playing a game of chess with myself, being like, if I was thinking of the best points I could make, how would I make it? I didn't think about the play for maybe a year. Then I saw some arguments and I noticed it like from the point of view of a playwright, and I was like, wow, no one's making any good points. So I started off writing quite cleanly, everyone made good points, and then I rewrote it and I was like, no one can make a good point, because that's what I think people are like in the heat of an argument. My characters go to places where I don't think I would necessarily go to in a family argument unless I was having a really bad day. Like, I'm capable of going there, I'm definitely capable of thinking those things, obviously, or I couldn't have written it. But my cast kind of said that's what they really loved about the play, is that how intense love and really close relationships can be really tied to really destructive and quite harmful behaviour, and that's the messiness of family. And everyone has stories about outrageous arguments, people being dragged out with their middle fingers up as they scream at their family members. That's been a really cathartic thing to say, like, hey, this feels like a really personal story, but yeah, a lot of people see themselves. I saw the play Phaedra at the National a few years ago and I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. No one's listening to each other. You can see the exact moment when they've thought, this is what I'm going to say, and then they're going to start speaking. So that was one of the plays that I was like, that is how I want to write dialogue. And then like the writings of Bruce Norris, I just love him. Like I love his work. Just that feeling of like laughing, cringing, like kind of being reviled. And yeah, so those are probably the pieces that have really inspired me. I didn't write this play using structural tools, but I use a lot of thinking on structure to help me find answers. So I don't think I intended to write this as a 5-act play, but you can apply a 5-act structure to it. Some of my favourite pieces of theatre or art maybe don't obey the rules of structure, or it's so obscured that it's not obvious how it's fitting into that. I try to use it as much as it serves me, like just reading over prompts and seeing, does applying this, okay, we're in the 3rd act here, does that help me? Does that serve me? Can that unlock something? A moment in the play that I really enjoy, and every time I see my actors, my cast perform it, I love this moment. The sister of the protagonist tries to convince his wife that this is an issue of kind of female solidarity and tries to get her on board. And she starts comparing herself to Mahatma Gandhi. No one ever taps you on the shoulder and says, by the way, this is a good moment to talk about how horribly we treat the women in our family. And whenever you want to say it, there's something else that's more important, like, shh. If you ask Gandhi what he's doing sleeping naked with his young nieces, you'll make him look creepy and he'll fuck up independence for everyone. So now isn't the time. Don't ask him that. And it's funny how it's never a good time for the women's issue. The women just have to suck it up and wait. Do you ever think, why is it the women who have to suck it up? Why doesn't Gandhi suck it up? Why can't Gandhi just sleep with his wife if he cares so much about Indian independence? If it's all riding on him and his precious reputation, why doesn't he just put his clothes on? To which her sister-in-law replies, why are you talking about Gandhi? And she says, I'm making a point. I find that really funny because I think she's making a good point, but I also think it's totally mad. And there have been moments in my life, which I'm ashamed to admit, where I have compared my battles, my petty little battles, to Abraham Lincoln and even Nelson Mandela. Yes, I think there's something really funny about how you can get so deluded. When someone's trying to convince themselves or convince someone else, they reach for these really big historic moments, and how someone else can just cut that down. So yeah, I think that's a moment I really like. There are things about this play that mean that the National is one of few places that it could have been put on. It is extremely ambitious in terms of its scale, scope, and I just hope that people are surprised by it. And you know, one of my favourite feelings to get from a play is to see things from a completely different angle. I know it's nice to go to a play and feel solidarity, but I love the feeling of walking away and thinking, damn, I never thought I'd agree with that. My sister read a first draft of it before I knew how to write dialogue, before I knew anything about structure or any theory, and just said, this play will be on at the National Theatre.
Shaan, I have just read the first draft that you sent me. It's incredible, it's brilliant, and I'm almost certain that it is going to be on at the National Theatre in the future. That is where it belongs. I see it, I have this vision. Yeah, I without a shadow of a doubt, I believe this will be on at the National Theatre. Congratulations, and I hope that every other draft gets you one step closer to making my prophecy come true.
I do wonder if her saying it made me submit it to the National and invite the National to readings, and you really do need someone to say it's possible. And yeah, my sister was the first one to call it. She called it, and yeah, maybe manifested it. This building is just kind of so inspiring. You can just hear screams coming through, and you're like, the whole floor sometimes is literally shaking with some wild workshop. Then you can like stick your head in, and it made it feel like a privilege, I guess, like that you come here and amazing things are happening. And if I could come here all the time and just write this play, I would. So it made me fall in love with the process of writing, I think. Enjoy the period when it's just for you and when you can make mistakes. There's a boldness and unfettered freedom to that period that I'm not sure I enjoyed enough. Even when things are going really well, I am someone who's, and I think probably most people hear a lot of self-doubt. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be here, doesn't mean you shouldn't write or you shouldn't show it to people. So I would try not to let self-doubt kind of constrain and fetter me. But I think people go to the theatre to explore dark, complicated feelings that don't really have a space in normal life. So hopefully the things that I feel a bit uncomfortable and scary to write are the things that people really actually deep down want to see. I think everyone can write and should write. It is something that bears fruit the more effort you put in it. If I had left my play at its 50-page first draft in 2018, it would have been something and it would have said something, but it probably wouldn't have been something that anyone else would have wanted to share, but it still would have meant something for me. If you see something differently, say it. I want to see my world differently. I want to see it how you see it. So I think that's probably the idea calling you. Here's a writing prompt to get people at home starting to write. So a writing prompt on the theme of a family rift could be to write a scene that takes place after a funeral, and it could be between siblings, between a parent and a child, a husband and a wife. Their relationship starts to unravel in the context of their grief. I think this is a brilliant prompt, and there's lots to think of here. I think the context of the funeral and the grief might allow things to come to the surface that wouldn't come to the surface and might remain unsaid on a good day. So I think there's lots of potential for hidden resentments, old tensions, secrets, as well as lots of love, care, and respect. But all these things can exist alongside each other, and I think there's lots to explore. Get into it.